Hey guys, and welcome to Functional Print Friday. Hashtag not Friday because, well, it's not Friday and we're gonna be playing with a new toy today. So you'd be amazed at the number of companies that reach out to me on a weekly basis to send me stuff for free to review on the channel. And I say no to like 99% of it because while I wouldn't mind getting like free power banks and power tools and things, it's just not directly related to what we do on this channel, and I don't want to litter this channel with a bunch of irrelevant stuff just to get free toys. But I did say yes to this one, and there's a story here. This actually goes back to something I bought about maybe a year and a half ago. Let me bring you in closer. So a while back I purchased a set of precision ground stones from Spencer over at pfgstones.com. In fact, I think I actually opened the package for these in an earlier Functional Print Friday video because like they came right as I started shooting. And he shipped them over in this little PETG tray, and they're actually meant to store in this tray as well. But what caught my eye was this engraving on the back. This is not part of the 3D printing process. I'm pretty sure it's laser engraved, and I never asked him about it, but I've been thinking about it ever since because it's got great detail. Like you can't really, even multicolor printing, you can't get detail that small in a print. It's good for big stuff. Like for example, here's an accessory tray that I made for my lathe, and this is another color embedded on here, and this is the face that printed down on the print bed, so it's super smooth too. Like it's a really slick look, but the reality is these letters are pretty big, and yeah, I could go smaller than this, but if you go too much smaller than this, it really just starts to lose the effect. It looks kind of jumbled. Whereas this, I mean, it looks like you could go even significantly smaller than this font size and have it still be readable. So ever since I've been thinking, yeah, I wouldn't mind checking out a laser engraver slash cutter, which again, is I think how he actually did this. And that's what I've got on the bench today. Okay, so this is the Ray 5 10 watt, and this is from a company called Longer. And I'm pretty sure we have everything that we see here in the picture. I believe it includes the laser module, the frame and gantry, and all the electronics, as well as the touch screen to control this. And I said yes to these guys because I really feel like this is something that is not only kind of a brother or sister to 3D printing, but also will dovetail in with 3D printing as well. I can see a lot of projects where we'll end up using both processes, both 3D printing and a laser cutter for maybe some parts that we're going to do out of acrylic or wood or something like that, but probably more likely for engraving. I'm really interested in seeing how fine of lettering we can do on 3D printed parts, because again, there's some things it's just not practical to try and do them with multicolor. I also asked them to send me the Air Assist. I believe this is essentially just like a small air compressor that blows air, I think, down like through or alongside the laser. I'm really not sure. I know very little about these laser engravers and cutters. Let's get everything open and see what we got. All right, guys, got this all together, and I cleaned up enough of my mess on the workbench that I think we are ready to start testing this. And assembly was very easy. I am very meticulous with this type of thing, and I was, really trying to understand how each piece works and how best to assemble it, ignoring the instructions even at times, and it still only took me like 35 minutes. I could put together a second one in 5 minutes. There's really not a lot to do. It's very self-explanatory how all the parts go together. So I do want to take just a minute and talk about safety before we turn this on, because this is not a toy, right? Just like a 3D printer is not a toy, but there are some elements here that are important to understand before you flip one of these on. The amount of power of one of these units, if that laser energy gets directed into your eyeball, it's game over. you're going to be blind pretty quick. And I don't want to be blind. And selfishly, I don't want you guys to be blind either, because then you can't watch my videos and nobody else is going to watch them. So I need you guys to keep your eyesight. So make sure you put your laser safety glasses on when you use this. All right, I've got you guys on a tripod and I tried to position things that you can see the LCD screen here and the lasers. So let's turn this on. All right, working coordinates, mechanical coordinates. Looks like everything is all zeros. I wonder why there's a z-axis. I think this thing only moves in x and y. This is 400 millimeters by 400 millimeters, by the way, which is pretty good size. Let's see, tool. Oh, that looks like just hardware details. Control. Ah, it moves. It lives. Laser. Ooh, it looks like we can actually manually turn on the laser. Should we do that? 0.5%. How dangerous can that be? Doing anything? Oh, interesting. So I can't actually, looking on the camera screen that I'm recording this on, I can actually see that. But if I wonder if that's it's probably just the angle. Yeah, I'm looking with my eyes through this red shield, so I can't see anything. But I notice on the camera screen here, you guys can actually see that turn on and off. So I guess maybe 0.5% is good for like positioning the laser or zeroing it, because I don't think we're cutting anything at 0.5% power. Engrave. No SD card. Oh, you know what? I think this came with an SD card. Yeah, it did. So this came with what looks like, yeah, this is a little USB card, SD card reader, and there's an SD card in here. So let's put this guy in. Bird, compass, logo. Let's do compass. Oh, you know what? Let me put my actual laser goggles on. All right, I've got my laser goggles on. I'm gonna move this because it looks like we're zeroed over here. And I don't want to like put something in the middle of this sheet. So let's try that. And I'm gonna hit carve. Oh, that is definitely doing something. All right, guys, I think it's done, and that actually looks really cool. I don't know if the camera is picking up that detail, but that's pretty neat. You can actually feel the texture of it too. It feels like it's engraved into the material by maybe, I don't know, 0.01 millimeter or 0.05. It's not super deep, but it's deep enough that it is below the surface. All right, that was pretty cool. And I should mention, by the way, you do actually have to set the height of this. I did that as part of the assembly. When I finished assembling it, I put this sheet underneath and I set the height. You set the height just with this little aluminum cylinder. On the back of the laser module itself, there is a notch. It's this notch back here. And what you do is you just set this cylinder down on the material that you want to cut or engrave. You loosen the 2 thumb screws on the front, and then you drop the unit down onto this aluminum cylinder when that cylinder is in this notch back here. And then you tighten it up and you're good to go. And it looks like we have a fair amount of adjustability there. Let me put you guys back in the stand and let's see how high this thing goes. Yeah, that's pretty high. We could fit quite a bit underneath there. And worth mentioning, I mean, you could raise this whole frame too. It's just on little legs at the side. There's no reason you couldn't stack stuff underneath of it to raise this whole thing up if you needed more clearance. But that looks pretty generous just with the feet they give you. Kind of makes me wonder. All right, come on. How cool is that? You know, obviously I'm just messing around, but I feel like there's an actual business opportunity here. Imagine your caterer offering you personalized rolls for your next event? You heard it here first, guys. All right, guys, let's go check out the software for this and see if we can figure out how to make our own designs. Okay, so when it comes to software, you've got a couple different options. On the included SD card with the longer Ray 5 is a version of Laser GRBL as well as a version of Lightburn. Now, rather than install either one of those from the SD card, the first thing I did was go up to the website for each one of these software packages and just do a little reading and see what they're about. And from my brief look, it seems that there's some pros and cons with each. Huge pro for Laser GRBL is that it is completely free. So if you don't want to spend any additional money on software, this is probably the direction you want to go. From a cons perspective, the ease of use isn't quite as good and it's limited as to what you can do with it. If you're doing all your image prep in other applications and all you want to do is just generate the G code to run the laser, this will probably be enough for you, but it seems like most people are a lot happier with Lightburn. I say most people because I don't have experience with either one of these. I'm going based on just the limited amount of research I've done and the amount of time that I have played with Lightburn, because that's what I chose to try out first. So the first time you come into Lightburn, there is some basic setup you're going to need to do. I've already created the device in mind here, but I'll open up devices and just click on this and show you the settings that you're going to need to make. So you're going to need to select GRBL. Select serial USB. I named mine longer Ray 5 10 watt, just like the machine is. And you do need to specify the dimensions of the work area. So you're going to enter 400 and 400. Hit next. I chose front left for the origin of laser. And that's it. You are done. Okay, so once we finish our device setup, we're left with this 400 by 400 grid here in Lightburn. And this represents the maximum working area of our laser cutter engraver. And this is by no means going to be a comprehensive, tutorial here on how to use the software. I'm just going to show you how to do a couple very basic things that I have figured out in the limited amount of time that I have spent playing with this. So let's try engraving some text first. So if I click on the text tool and I type something in here, I can switch back to the little pointer tool and I can drag that all around within the workspace. I can make it larger, I can make it smaller. And notice that the text looks like an outline of text versus solid text. I think it always looks like that within the software, but you have control over what's actually happening in the engrave process. So if we look up here in Cuts Layers, just by typing the text in, it's automatically generated this cut profile up here. Now, I've already filled these numbers in. I don't remember what this defaulted to, but the first number represents the speed. And I think I actually had to go into the settings and set this to be, in the preferences, and set this to be millimeters per minute versus millimeters per second. And the reason I changed mine to millimeters per minute was I looked at one of the G-code files that came with the laser cutter, in this case that compass. And you can see that this was, the G-code was created by an earlier version of Lightburn, but it's nice that there's a note up here at the top that says 3000 millimeters per minute, 30% power, because that's the things that you have control over on a laser cutter engraver is how fast it's moving and how much power it's outputting while it's moving. There's other things you have control over too, like the amount of steps, which is similar to your layer height or your layer width in 3D printing. But from a basic understanding perspective, you have control over the speed at which it's moving and what percentage of power the laser is running at while it's moving at that speed. So I figured, okay, well that compass looked good, so we'll just copy those settings, and that is what I did. So I set this to 3030. Now notice in mode here, we have fill and we have line. So I have it on fill. We can actually right click on this and hit preview. Well, we gotta have it selected first. So select it and we're gonna hit preview. And I have it set to show the traversal moves. I think that's by default, but we can see that's a preview of what we're gonna get. So fill is gonna fill in these letters. We're gonna see the word subscribe in solid, right? So if we go back and we change this to line, now we look at this and we can see, even if I turn the show traversal on, we can see that what it's doing is it's just going around and drawing the edges and leaving the space white or the solid material color in the center and just engraving the edges. We're going to go with fill. All right, we probably want our size to be a little bit smaller here. These numbers on the side are in millimeters. I don't want this to be that big, so we'll drag it down smaller. And that ends up being about 10 millimeters in height now. Now, unless you're engraving like a huge area, it doesn't really matter where on the workspace you position this to slice it. So what I mean by that is we can manually define the start point of the engraver for each one of these jobs. And that's what this little green square is in the center. This defaulted to this left front position up here. Now this is different than the device origin. This is the origin for the job. And if you leave it in the front corner, the problem there is, how do you really know where that is on a workpiece relative to the size of the job you're engraving? Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't know how you'd easily determine that without maybe making a mark on the workpiece that you want to engrave, which is, you know, perfectly okay. That's a legitimate solution, but I find it easier to set the job origin to the center. Now our little green square has moved to the center, and I can just manually position the laser over the center of the workpiece, and we'll be able to hit go, and it will move and start, you know, it's going to start the job over here. It's probably going to be the S first, or start with the bottom row here and just work its way up. But when it's ultimately engraved, everything we see here on the screen, it will be centered on that center point that we start the laser from. So, all right, let's do that. Let's output this and let's go try it. I'm going to do save G-code. All right, we called that test.gc, and one nice feature that I discovered very quickly on this machine is it actually has a web interface. If you go into the touchscreen on the device and you join it to your Wi-Fi network, you can come in here and upload files directly to the SD card from the web interface. And this is super nice because at first I was running down, grabbing the SD card out of the laser engraver, coming up, putting it in the SD card reader, plugging that into my desktop, saving the file, pulling it out, running back down to the laser engraver, putting the SD card back in, real pain. But when I discovered that if I joined it to my Wi-Fi access point, that I could just upload the files here, I've just been doing it this way. It's so much nicer. We'll upload our file, and let's go back down to the machine and try actually running that job. All right, so I've got a whole bunch of these wooden sticks for testing, and this is what I mean about centering the job. So hopefully you can see down here, I've got one of those sticks and I've just positioned the laser over the center of that stick. So it's over the center of it from left to right, and it's over the center of it from top to bottom. So if we start the job on that center point, it should center our engraving on the stick. So let's try it. All right, and that worked pretty well. Let's try something else. Okay, so now that we have some good settings to engrave on wood with, you know, at 3,000 millimeters per minute and 30% power, what about other materials? Or what if we want to engrave darker or lighter on wood? What if we want to cut wood? What if we want to engrave on PLA or PETG, or even try marking on some metals like stainless steel? Well, Lightburn has a feature in here. If we go to Laser Tools and go to Material Test, it'll let us plug in a set of values, a range to test within. And I think it defaults here to 600 millimeters per minute and 18,000 millimeters per minute, with power ranging from 10% to 100%. Now, you're probably going to want to change those values depending on the wattage of the laser that you purchased. But the easy way to understand what this is going to do is we can actually click Preview, and we can see right in here what it's going to engrave, and it's just generating a grid. But this is a good way to see what different power settings and speed settings are going to do on different materials. And I've got a couple different ones I tried that I will show you. All right, let's try something a little bit more advanced. Let's put some more text in here. And then let's draw a square around it. And then let's draw another square around that. And we can zoom in here and move things around so that we have our spacing, you know, pretty much the way that we want it. We can go a little smaller on this, And there might even be a way within the software here to get it to automatically align to the center point of each one of these, but I'm just moving it around manually. Now, by default, all these are going to end up in the same cut layer, but I don't want that to happen here. I want the IM text to be part of this, and we'll do that at the 3030, and we'll do that as fill. Now this first box here around it, I'm going to click down here on the bottom on this blue 01. That's going to tell lightburn that I want this to be a separate cut. And we'll do line for that one. And I'm going to go same thing, the 3030. And this last one, I'm going to make that a separate cut again. And for this one, we're going to go 300 millimeters per minute and 60% power. That should cut all the way through the material based on my limited testing. All right, so let me save this and let's give that a try. Okay, one change you'll notice here on the laser engraver is I've propped it up on some of my stacking parts trays because I had a bunch here and they're all the same size. And that gives us a little more vertical group to put one of these honeycomb grids in here, because I'm hoping that we're going to cut all the way through this material, which means if we're cutting all the way through, then whatever's underneath is going to get marked, unless it's something metal like this that we don't have to worry about. So, all right, let's give this a try. All right, let's see how we did. Yeah, that worked out really well. You can see it cut all the way through the material for that last move, and we have our text on there, and we have our box outlining the text. And here's an example of some of the results I got by running several of those material tests. You can see we got all different shades of color here in engraving the wood material, including, way too dark. I mean, that's eaten halfway through the material. Stainless steel, you can get some really cool effects from it. So this blue color, this orange color, and this black color is all just from varying the speed and the intensity of the laser. I was really, really impressed with what you could do on stainless steel. This is just a plain old stainless steel bottle opener. For plastics, I tried PLA, and it does a really nice job marking it at a really high resolution. And here is red PETG. I wasn't able to get dark markings the same as that tray that I showed you at the beginning of the video. I don't think that's down to settings. I think it's just the type of laser that does the work. I think this is what you can expect from a diode laser on PETG and PLA, and this is certainly still very useful. In fact, the effect that you get running at a sort of a low power and medium speed is almost like a smoothing of the top of the material. I actually wouldn't mind trying this to almost kind of polish the top layer of a flat print. You can see on the PETG, which I thought would be the most promising, we can really vary anything from just barely marking the top of the surface to making it completely shiny but not really sinking the top at all, to under a higher amount of power. It's basically just completely melting the material, but not burning it. It melts it really nice. It's there's probably a lot of different ways that we could exploit that to get different results, maybe even fuse materials together. So I am by no means done messing with this machine. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. I'm really excited to have this machine in my shop with all the other tools that I regularly use, because there's no one perfect process. You guys have seen me use several different 3D printers, a lathe, a milling machine, and now we're adding this laser cutter to the arsenal as well. And here's another example of the marking that we can do on stainless steel. Mrs. FPF is a big fan of Doctor Who, and when I saw this brilliant blue result we got over here on the material test for this little piece of stainless, I went and I downloaded a TARDIS image and set that to fill in lightburn and just duplicated the exact same power settings that I did in this material test and engraved this nice bottle opener for her. So this is probably the thing that I was most surprised by in testing this, is the range of results that you could achieve on stainless steel. This is giving me so many different ideas to use stainless steel as a medium in different projects. All right, guys, I think that's going to do it for our initial look at this longer Ray 5 10-watt laser cutter slash engraver. And I hope you guys found this video as interesting as it was for me to actually put this machine together and go through some of these initial tests and just begin to learn what these machines are capable of and how it works. Would I recommend this specific machine? Yes, I would, for two reasons. Number one, it has Wi-Fi. I did not realize at the beginning how important that would be. It got old really quick, running back and forth with the SD card in here between the laser engraver and my computer before I realized that I could just join the machine to my Wi-Fi and then browse to it via web browser and upload my files that way. Number two is the touchscreen itself. You can connect this machine via USB to your computer and just run the whole thing from your computer, but then you're tethered to it. Even if you have a laptop, okay, well now, so we want to go cut something, we're going to boot up the laptop, put the card on the or put the file on the laptop, connect the laptop to this, run the job, then we can move the laptop. It's just a real pain. Being able to execute our jobs and manage the machine from the touchscreen on the front is really, really nice. Build volume on this machine is also really generous. At 400 by 400, and they use off-the-shelf plain old rails versus like custom extrusions that you can't find anywhere else, means that you could just extend this machine as big as you want. I mean, I guess you're going to get into some limitations here on this axis, just because we have a rail that runs underneath as well that turns the pulley on this side, so we probably wouldn't want to extend to that axis, but we could go as far as we want in that direction. We could just buy longer material, and I really like that. This is not the last time you're going to see this machine on the channel. I have an air assist kit for this machine that I want to try out as well, but I think I also want to build an enclosure for it. So the next time you see this on the channel, I hope to have this in a DIY enclosure and have the air assist set up on it as well to try some other cutting. Guys, as always, thanks for hanging out in the shop with me for this video. I really had a good time putting this together and testing it out. And if you guys are at all interested in picking up one of these machines, Longer, the company that sent me this machine to check out, also gave me a discount code to share with you guys that's going to give you some money off one of these machines. I'll put that down in the description of this video. So if you are interested in getting into laser engraving or cutting, or expanding the tool set that you have to work with in your own shop, definitely check out that discount code before you go up to their site to buy one of these, because it'll save you some money. All right, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.